justice for all.
Thanks for coming, everyone. Mr. Hogue and I are here in person. Mr. Jansen, Mr. Ryan, Mr. Bailey, and Mr. Shute are appearing virtually. Mr. Haskamp is absent this evening. Is there an approval of the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Hogue to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Jansen. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with all members voting yes. Okay, comments from visitors. Is there anyone who wishes to address the school board tonight? Anyone who would like to speak? Last chance. Okay, hearing none, we will move along. Old business. Approve the following policies with second reading.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Hogue to approve the policies under the second reading, 601, 602, 603, 604, and 609. Is there a second?
Is there a second to approve the policies? Jeremy, is that a second?
That is a second.
All right.
Second by...
Before that second,
Yep.
can I ask a question? I'm sorry, I'm flipping back in screen, so I was slow to be able to get back in here and ask this. Regarding number, hang on, let me find it here.
I think procedurally I'm going to go ahead and accept the second and then move on to discussion because I had a comment as well. So continue,
okay.
Mr. Ryan.
That's fine.
So Joe, you got the floor.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yep, no.
Policy 604, instructional curriculum.
Okay.
My question is I noticed a section in there, believe it or not, I had a note and something written out, and I've lost it. I can't find it. But I believe it was around page 4 or 5. Started on 4, continued into 5. And it was in regard to the social studies and or history or et cetera curriculum.
Okay.
And a test that is required in that curriculum, of which apparently a student has to, the school or the department submits 50 out of 100 questions that are provided by, if I have this straight, MDE. And then whatever, I'm just curious how that process works, because a student to be proficient has to answer 30 out of those 50 questions. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about, Dan?
I am not real familiar with it.
Okay.
Mr. Corrales, Paul Schick.
Kind of struck me as weird, and I certainly didn't understand it thoroughly.
Right.
And for that reason, I'm wondering if it's possible to, and it's the policy, this has been going on for a long time.
Right.
I'd just like to know, what are those questions, number one? How is it determined what 50 questions are asked? Who decides that? And then, beyond that, what role does our district play in that decision? I guess I'm just not familiar with it.
So there's 100 questions that are provided by the Immigration Services as part of the test.
Is that what it is?
And then we're supposed to pick 50 of them to assess kids on that. And this is
I know that there's sample tests online because I've done it in my household for fun as a game before.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I certainly use them to find test questions myself. So I know I'm speaking out of turn, but I don't know. I know that they've been talking about developing a civics test at the state level for a long time, but I don't know of such a test yet.
Right. And part of this, as a student enrolled in public school, they must do. The school picks 50 out of the 100 questions, and then they're supposed to answer 30 of the 50 correctly.
Mr. Corrales, do you know? Okay, and we don't have anyone from,
I'll follow up.
yeah.
And Dan, is that part of a specific test that a certain grade level has to take and be proficient at before graduation?
There's no, my understanding is there's no graduation requirement
Okay.
held to it. So, no, and with any of our testing, there's no graduation requirements held to them anymore. They're typically, or they're done to identify gaps in curriculum or where you're strong and things like that. So,
Okay.
yeah. Honestly, I think when everybody else was getting the test, kids had to pass, social studies felt they needed one, and that's where this came from.
Okay.
That's
Just
not
to make a note, I'd like to see a copy of those questions.
Yep, I'll see what we got.
What 50 we select. I'm just really curious
Okay.
because.
Do we need to pull that policy then?
Joe, do you want us to pull that policy or not?
Yeah, pull that one.
Okay. That'd be 604.
I guess the only one I just didn't have a very clear understanding of where it was going.
Right. Right?
And then I just had, someone had called and made a comment just asking for a little more clarification, and I think it was under one of these policies, but I'm not exactly sure, just about when we have the e-learning days, and that those e-learning days are when it's comparable to a snow day, correct? Not
Yes.
necessarily a distance learning
Those are
day?
strictly snow days.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I think the comment was just trying to be mindful of what happens then for, like, the protocols for those, for taking attendance or people checking in and, you know, just to be mindful of that. So hopefully, I'm not going to jinx us by having more conversation, but I just wanted to let you know that I think that there are some questions from parents and staff alike on how people check in, what times, that sort of thing. So I just wanted to pass that along, that as we move forward with different models, or if it ends up on an e-learning snow day, that there's specific communication that goes out
Right.
to people. So that was my only comment on those.
And the e-learning policy is actually in later in the meeting for approval.
Okay, so so I'm a little premature. So Mr. Hoag and Mr. Jansen, are you okay with modifying the motion and the second then to approve all the policies with removing policy 603 from the second reading at this time?
604.
Sorry, 604?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries with all members voting yes. Okay, new business. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
We gotta pull, I wanna pull two positions out of there just because we don't have them listed right in here. That'd be our dance team varsity assistant and there's two dance team varsity assistant positions listed. And we don't have the right title for those coaching spots. The two individuals, I believe should be junior high coaches, not assistant JV. So I noticed that over the weekend. I was going to clarify it today with our AD, and I didn't get there. So I'm asking that we pull those two from the list at this point.
So that would be RS, X, and Y, because it's on there twice.
Oh, yeah, RS and X and Y. We had them on there twice.
And then I need to abstain from voting because my husband is listed under
Oh,
D.
right.
That is the
Assistant.
one, the Greg Hills, that's the assistant varsity wrestling coach. I'm not married to the Greg Hills, that's the boys basketball varsity assistant coach. Those are two separate people.
Yep.
So I just need to abstain from this vote for a conflict of interest.
John, here, the seniority list, are they part of the consent agenda or are they after that?
That would be a part of the seniority list.
Yes.
Or of the consent agenda. The seniority list would be a part of the consent agenda.
One of them I had a question on was the support staff, the AESS group. Could we talk about that for clarity?
Cindy, can you talk about that?
Yes, please.
Yes.
When we get to it, or now?
Well, it would be part of the consent agenda, so do you, I guess you either pull it and talk about it, or we talk about it now before you do the
If it's
consent.
if it's just a question, we can just talk about it
For a
now.
clarification, I guess I looked on that list and there was like 40-some people on it. I'm trying to get back to it here. And there was a couple of names that have moved around and within the system, and there was one name on there in particular that I think she's been gone from our district for a couple of years. How current is that seniority list?
This was just
That's the
updated.
question I got.
It
How
was updated,
do we approve something that we don't know if it's current? That's my question.
it was updated on the 10th.
Okay?
November,
Yep, November 10th.
so last week.
Yep, but I'm looking through the list, trying to see if I recognize
And I'm looking to find that spot again. I'm sorry.
Just the number, John.
yeah, give me the number if you come up with it, don't say the name.
Yep, and that's what I was working for, but I've got to find the number. Okay, here we go. Let's see if I can get it to open here. Well, you have number 31 that she's moved around a couple times. Is she
high
part
school?
of this group now?
High school para, yes.
Okay, and how about 34? She's still around or not?
Yep.
Is she back?
She's here, she's a high school para.
Okay, because I know she was gone for a while.
Okay.
And I just, just was curious on that. Those are the couple that jumped out at me here.
All right.
That's all. I wanted to clarify it. Thank you.
Okay, so I believe there is a motion. Is there
Yeah,
a
motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
Okay,
Yep.
There's no.
there is, or there's not?
You did have, yep. 'cause
Who
then-
was it?
Oh,
I
no,
didn't get it.
no, I don't think we did do a motion.
Okay, is there a
Sorry.
motion to approve the consent agenda with eliminating R, S, X, and Y, removing those?
I'll make motion.
Motion by Mr. Hoag, is there a second?
Is there a second?
Consent agenda goes down as far as
It goes all the way down to letter B.
11B.
I mean, down to,
It's through 10, D as in dog.
It goes down to 7.
goes down from,
No, it goes down to 10.
10D as in dog.
yeah, 10D. It stops at letter B. And then the last thing is approved 2020-21 driver competencies.
Motion by Mr. Hoag, is there a second?
I'm sorry, my agenda does not identify that on this app. It's just not there.
The consent agenda's not there?
There. It is not included because when you get into here,
It goes to 7, 8, 10,
just for
D.
clarification, I'm going to tell you that when you get into let's see,
Cindy. It goes
Greg Hills, Daryl Smith,
7, 8, 10, D.
Yep.
Yes.
and then 7B is discuss and approve Don Hines' position.
It
Yep,
stops
that's-
right before that.
Yep,
That's right where the end of the
Oh,
consent
7, 8,
agenda is.
10, 7, 8.
10, D.
No, okay.
So it's all of 7A.
Yep.
I'm sorry, mine says 7A.
No, that's correct.
So there is no 11. There is no.
There's no 7A11.
No,
There is not.
nope. So we're approving all of 7A under the consent agenda.
I got you.
Looking for a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Jansen, any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries with all members voting yes. Okay, under new business, 7B, discuss and approve Dawn Himes' position to stay full-time and her position until the end of the school year. I think you'll recall that earlier this fall, we approved it through this quarter.
I think through December 1st, or I think it was through December 1st. So I'm asking that we approve that through the end of the year. The additional cost with salary and benefits is $7,740, and that can come out of, if you remember right, that is coming out of Safe Schools Fund. We did, in fiscal year 20, we did have additional funds added to, $40,000 added to our Safe Schools funds, which really haven't been earmarked or allocated at this point. So I'm asking that we continue with her position through the end of the school year, and the cost, an additional cost of $7,740 with salary and benefits.
Dan, going forward, are those funds something that will pay for or offset the cost of that position being filled in a future year? Do you know?
As part of the secure entry, it can, yes.
I'm sorry, they will be?
Yeah, if they deem it's tied to the secure entry.
Okay.
Part of our safety plan.
Okay. I just didn't hear all that.
Assuming nothing changes in the law.
Right.
Yep.
I think Dawn has done a really nice job. That's obviously kind of a front and center position there, and I think that she has done a nice job of, dealing with her AD admin assistant duties, as well as covering all of the additional secure entrance duties. So I do appreciate the work that she's doing. I would support that. Is there a motion to approve that?
I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Hoag to approve.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Ryan. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with all members voting yes. Okay, Sherry Sandbeck, we are looking to add 3 hours a week to do the alt school secretary role. Mr. Stifter?
So we did have a resignation retirement in the alt school secretary position. We posted the position, and Sherry did apply. Talked with her a couple of times, as well as with Gary Blake. Sherry was doing the Mars work and some of the work that normally is tied to that position already as part of her job. So she, in visiting with her, figures 3 hours a week she can take care of the rest of the secretarial needs for the alt school. So Sherry is
to approve.
Do you know if does she work 40 hours right now?
Yes.
And so then this will be overtime?
Yeah, and it'll still be, the fact it's just 3 hours instead of 5 or 6 of what we're doing. Will be cost savings. And we'll go, and this will get us through the year, and we can reevaluate the summer if we want to, how we want to continue, or if she wants to continue in that role.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Ryan to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Hoag. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Is anyone voting?
I don't know.
Noel's trying to say something, but he's muted.
No, your mic's not on.
Can you unmute him, Dan?
Maybe, being that he's connected.
There he is.
I found it.
Okay.
Noel, did you have a question?
No, I just got back on here again.
Okay.
So there's a motion and a
Didn't hear
second.
the vote.
There's a motion and a second to approve Sherry Sandbeck to do 3 extra hours a week to serve as the alt school secretary from a retirement. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with all members voting yes. Also, thank you to Sherry. I know all of the assistants have done an amazing job and continue to really help push through. Okay, discuss and approve raising the substitute rate for paraprofessionals from $10.50 an hour to $11.25 effective December 1. And so again, that's the substitute rate, so
Yep.
these people do not fall under the union contract?
No.
And
Yeah.
how will this impact the starting pay in the union contract?
This is still below the union pay in the contract. When I went through, when we're struggling to find subs, so I went through and did some work on where our sub pays are at compared to other districts and where they are in relation to each other within our own units. We're in the ballpark everywhere, pretty much. I mean, with the exception of our sub para rate was low. Many districts are in at $11.25 to $11.50 to $12. This gets us up, but if we approve the raise, it gets our para sub rate up to $11.25, which was right there toward the low end, but it was in the ballpark anyway with what area schools are paying for para subs.
Dan, do we know what impact this is going to have on an annual budget?
I don't have that in front of me. At 75 cents an hour, I have, well, it's not fair to say how many para subs we have in the building right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm not.
It's probably hard to tell.
Clear on that, not that we can, we have to pay the going rate for sure.
Right. Like I said, this was the one that stuck out the most as not being, being below what area districts are paying for sub-paras.
And they work how many hours a day?
It depends on who you're subbing for. It's between 6 and 6.5 hours a day typically.
So about $5 a day is what we're looking at
Yep,
per sub-para.
correct.
Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion, and I still think it's low, but I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Bailey to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second it, knowing that anything and everything is going to be on the table when we get further down this agenda and move into the future. So, but by all means, if we're not taking a going rate, then we need to be.
Second by Mr. Ryan. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries with all members voting yes. Approve the resolution of the school board supporting form, which is an application to the State High School League Foundation.
So the High School League every year has a high school foundation fund, which districts can, I believe Aiken has, and many districts in the past have used that funds to do things like AEDs or some health and safety equipment for their teams and their activities. It's a formality. We have to complete the form or approve that our AED can request these funds. I'm guessing being the high school leagues in financial hurt with everything going on, I doubt that there'll be much for foundation funds this year. But if there is something available to us and we want to apply for them, we have to have this resolution approved in order to go for them. To go for those funds, excuse me.
Motion to approve.
Yep.
Motion by Mr. Hoag. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Jansen. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries with all members voting yes. Okay, approve the trust in us drug and alcohol testing service.
This is
agreement?
for our bus drivers. We have to have random drug tests. This is we contract through Approved Trust in Us. Terms of the agreement are the same as they were last year. So they take care
Make a
of
motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Ryan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bailey. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries with all members voting yes. Okay, the long-awaited e-learning plan.
All right, so the e-learning plan, we actually used it once already with our snow day when it resulted in having wet sidewalks. But anyway, we have to have a plan in place if we want to use e-learning as a snow day. Really, the e-learning plan is a mini version of our remote learning, our distance learning plan. Cindy, you mentioned concerns with attendance and how that works. I think we're working those out with our remote learning plan we're on right now in the high school. I know there were some questions and challenges there the day of the snow day. But the way we'll go about doing attendance on e-learning days is going to be just like we are, pretty much like we are right now with our remote learning days. So kind of frustrating thing is the MDE still wants two separate plans, even though realistically our e-learning day is going to follow our remote learning plan, and our remote learning plans have much more detail in it. But so we have to have this plan approved in order to continue to offer e-learning days on snow days. We can do up to 5 of them a year. We've done one. Any questions?
Dan, didn't we still had school that day, correct?
It counted as a school day, yes. We didn't have anybody come, we didn't run buses or anything, but teachers presented and carried on their lessons and classes just like we did, like we are right now in remote learning in the high school.
So it wasn't really a snow day then?
No.
Okay.
Yep, not officially.
Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make motion.
Motion by Mr. Hoag, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Jansen.
Second by Mr. Jansen. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with all members voting yes. Administrative report, any board member reports? We don't have any listed, but did anyone have anything?
As a board member report, call attention to the fact that we have the MREA conference, Minnesota Rural Education Association conference is going on as we speak. It's remote this year, as most other conferences are. Last night they had their awards program and had some pretty exceptional teachers and groups that got awards. Today, the keynote speaker came at 3:30 today. That I watched part of it. We'll be looking at the rest of it later. Anybody that can log in and follow this a little bit. Keynote speaker today, multiple breakout sessions throughout. They'll have a speaker tomorrow at 3:30 on their legislative guy. And on Wednesday, they have the finale at 3:30. So anybody that can find a little bit of time to log on to the MREA site and observe some of this stuff, they got some really great stuff going on. Thanks.
And
Thank you, John.
Yep, and John made a good point. All those sessions are available through the MREA website. They've recorded them. And yeah, the MREA conference is typically very good. It's especially for rural schools. It's geared towards rural schools, so that's the focus of their topics and of their meeting agendas. So if you get a chance, and we enrolled with it being a remote conference. We enrolled or we signed up for the whole district. So anybody in the district that's on our email list basically has access to log in and get that. You should have received an email saying, well, I guess you had to respond saying you wanted to have access, but that's the neat thing about it. In the past, we may have been able to get a handful of people out to go. Now, anybody who, if you saw a session or something you liked or wanted to have more information on, you could log into it. And even if you're not able at 3:30 today or tomorrow, you can go back and pull it up and watch the session later. So that's what I have.
Okay, thank you. All right, committee reports, personnel committee meeting.
I'll jump in because I don't know, but these are reviewing through the 600 policies. We have the 534, the unpaid meals we brought back. It's filling in, I don't know if I got it filled in on here. We're filling in the dollar amounts of when we notify families and so on. So, but otherwise, they're all first reading.
Are you doing your personnel committee report or?
Oh, I'm sorry. I jumped the policy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking.
Sorry, I missed the personnel committee. Cindy, I should let you run the meeting. Sorry.
I know you wanna get out of here.
No, go
quick,
ahead.
but-
Can we go back?
Yeah.
So it's the first reading of our, they said this year, every year we do 100 series of policies. This year it's the 600. The nice thing about that, there's not as many in the 600s as there was in the 500s, so.
And not much really for changes on those, right?
It's really just typical updates, yeah.
Okay, is there a motion to approve, oh, no, we don't need a motion because it's first
Just first
reading,
reading,
sorry,
no.
okay, so an update. Thank you.
Dan,
Yes, sir.
who makes those updates? Is that the committee or are those policy updates referred by the,
MSBA makes a policy update recommendations.
all right,
Yeah.
I wondered.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay, now Personnel Committee.
sorry. Personnel Committee, we've already talked about the two topics I believe I brought up there, and that was the secretarial positions and the sub payroll rates. So, those were the two things there. I can't remember if there was anything else at this point.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent's report, the service co-op.
Okay. Yeah, Northeast Service Co-op, the 2020 board election ballots are available for the board. I believe Mary got those to you, or
They're here.
they're here?
Yes.
I
There's,
just mailed mine directly back, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
so if you would get your ballot, take your ballot and vote. So there's two positions open, well, maybe three positions open and two people running, so be a slam dunk.
okay,
Our enrollment's down, as we were aware, but right now we're at 1087. That's down 16 from October. And, well, 32 from the start of the year. So some of that, a lot of it has, well, we did have a family, maybe two that moved away, but then we still have some kids that are doing some online, not our online learning, but going to online or homeschool learning. Along with the enrollment, I sent out, put on Facebook, put it on our website, dealing with our compensatory aid. We really need to stress and get out to families that even though lunches are free right now with the federal funds, we have a lot of other funding and a lot of other services tied to our free and reduced rates. So we have a double whammy kind of happening with our enrollment dropping. That number was going to go down anyway because we have fewer students, but without people having to do that application to get the free meals, we're having fewer people filling them out. So the word we're trying to get out, and I think Stacy, you posted on, actually I stole part of yours from your Facebook post for the football website or Facebook page. But the word to get out is that it's not just the free and reduced lunches. There's compensatory aid applied, tied to each one of those, and I think I shared that on Thursday night. But every reduced meal that's approved for the elementary, it's $1,200 a year, $1,300 in the high school, and then every free meal, that would be every free student in the elementary, that's $2,600 a year, and in the high school, it's about $2,000 a year. So it, the numbers add up, and also if you apply and qualify, you can get reduced rates or free ACT testing, and there's some other college applications will oftentimes be waived if you're identified as a free or reduced lunch. So there's a lot of other services that provides us beyond just the free lunch. So
is there, if a family knows that they're not going to qualify, is there any incentive that the school has for asking them to apply anyways?
I am told we should even ask those families to apply. I don't have a good, clear answer if there is a benefit or not. If there's any, I haven't. When I've asked that question, we're encouraged to have everybody apply.
Right. Okay. Because I'm aware of other school districts in our area that do little incentive type things, and that they, in their marketing, they're asking or actually having everyone fill it out, and those parents are under the impression that even if you know you don't qualify and you don't fill it out, that negatively impacts the school. So I didn't know if that was part of their marketing or.
Yeah, I'll dig into that and get that out, because when I'm trying to track down what compensatory aid is, I'm just kind of the message is you want everybody to fill them out, but I don't know. This is specific. The dollar amounts are for those that qualify. I don't know. I can't tie a dollar, to everybody that applies. But maybe that would be helpful if there is something like that, so,
Okay.
sorry, I have that. All right,
Thank you. COVID-19 discussion.
why don't we, well, we got two fun topics to talk about, but, we have district, I'm gonna push COVID-19 discussions and modify student schedule together,
Okay.
if that's all right.
So district finances?
Yep. So district finances, as you know, and I think we probably should have a work session, with the capital projects levy not passing. What is our next step? And, one of the reasons for running the capital projects levy when we did is if it would have passed, we would have gotten that money next year. Anything moving forward now, it's another year out. November was the last time. I'm not saying, or I don't know if we want to look at changing or doing something different there. I did not get a great feeling as to why it didn't pass from the community. I think that's something if the board, we could have those discussions at a board work session and just focus on district finances and where do we go at this point. But open for board input on that.
I've heard,
Yeah,
I've heard from other districts where people have said that it's hard to pass them when there's a general election.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if you know off the top of your head, like, how soon could we have another vote and what would the cost be?
Yep, and there's a time period in there. There's a time period in there. I don't have that. And if that's what if the board wants me to look at that, I can. I want to say it's March or April, but don't quote me on that.
I think that's correct.
And but I think the other thing we need to discuss is why. One of the reasons I ran it is so that I knew this was the last time to run it to get the funds next year. But again, and when we ran the numbers with Ellers and the dollar amounts, I felt were reasonable enough that even though we were working against the national election where we'd have good voter turnout, looking at it now, it's 2020 hindsight. Maybe I should have waited. We should have waited and run it the next time around and had maybe more time to get our message out, less things. One of the things we fought right away was the clouded political ballot. It was hard to get our message out. And then with COVID, I wasn't able to get to any meetings. That typically you try to get to different meetings, although we did have some members that were able to get to Lions and so on. But and then with early voting, it was all these things kind of lined up. I guess when I look back, a little bit against us. And the other, we got to do a better job of getting our message out as to what our needs are, and got to do a better job now of figuring out what the concerns were with the people that voted it down or voted against it. So, and bring people together so we can, whatever we do in the future, whenever we run it again, we can do a better job of getting people on board.
So I presume that with the video that WSN provided for us, that if we had another vote come right away in the spring, that we could still use that video.
Yeah.
We could still move forward with the marketing materials that they put together, right? And so part of it for me is I guess I personally would like to go out as soon as possible and just do another vote and just try to have a little more push and a little more focus, and to be able to utilize the marketing resources that we just paid for. Do you guys want to have more discussion tonight? Do you want to set up an individual special session for this? What do you want to do?
Yeah, I think it would be a good topic to discuss at a working session. I think that
November 30th.
we better analyze why it didn't pass before we move forward.
I don't even know how we would though, Joe. I mean, that's the thing.
Well, let's seek some input. But, that's the only thing we can do is try to seek some input, and I've heard some, and I guess I can't say I was obviously our whole board was behind this effort.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it came up quickly. Our community realizes that we have got to step into this budget situation, and that we're deficit spending right now. And I think they want to know and have the confidence that we are going to be responsible stewards of the budget dollars that we have, and it's gonna take some tough decisions. Everybody was behind us, as I said, but you just can't move forward again without kind of having that discussion and reassess why it didn't pass and what the objections were. So we need to spend a little time at that. And then I think too, Cindy, we can take advantage of what was created in terms of the marketing and the need. But I think with the conversation around our budget as we move forward, we're going to have a little better understanding of the impact of that request to the district.
So our work session, next work session is November 30th. Is that, do we want to, our scheduled work session, do we want to use that night and focus on what's next?
Yeah, I think we need to.
Absolutely.
All right. And then I'll get answers to some of these questions for you.
The biggest drawback before most of you guys, Cindy just got and Joe just got on board too, when we hired that tax firm from Brainerd. They said our biggest drawback is that we don't charge enough taxes. So if we go up $25, it's like not 40%, but everybody sees percentage.
Right.
They said you're going to fight that to the end, and we are the cheapest around, and we still fight it. And they said that was the biggest trouble we're going to have, and I still believe that's our trouble. We didn't charge enough before, and it's tough to get people to look. $2 a month was nothing.
That's right.
You know, so that, to me, that's what it is. We've been so low so long that it's like, it's tough to get them out of their holes now, but that's just my opinion. That's what they told us, and I think that's our biggest trouble.
I think Joe hit a little bit too. I don't know if it's a trust issue or whatever, but we got some questions that need to be, that the community wants answered. We just got to figure out what those questions are.
Mm-hmm.
We do.
Oh, I agree.
So November 30th, we'll put it down as our work session topic. All right. And the last that I have to talk about is modifying the COVID. Am I good to move? Tell me if I'm not. Modify our COVID-19 schedule, school day schedule. I shared this with the board earlier today, and I know it didn't give you much time. But what I'm proposing and asking of the board is starting on November 23rd, which will be next Monday. We will, from November 23rd to January 15th, we will go into remote learning for grades 4 through 12. It's basically will be 30 school days. That'll take us to the right up to a week before the end of the second quarter, I believe, is where that falls. And the reasons for that, it hasn't changed. The reasons we're in remote learning in the high school, but there is concerns about increasing numbers, the impact on staff. A lot of concern coming with the exposure to the holidays. Right now we're coming off the deer hunting holiday in Minnesota. We'll be going into Thanksgiving. We'll be going into Christmas. By doing remote learning until January 15th, that gives us 2 weeks after the holidays to get through the quarantines or the most contagious times, and we'll see where numbers are at, where things are at that time. I'm proposing with the remote learning, we need to have all staff ready. We jumped into remote learning in the high school with the idea, my thought was, whether it's right or wrong, is we had 3 days last week, and then we had a conference day and then a work day. I didn't use, the state has granted us 5 days to transition from models. We're not asking for 5 days. I'd like to have this Friday as a day of planning for pre-K-12, all our staff to plan for this extended remote learning time. There are some things, we'll have some special education issues to address. We're working out right now. We're working on a meal drop plan, and the email I sent out to the board is we really like the idea of preparing or sharing a hot meal every day. Right now we're running 4 different routes, one out to Palisade, one to Glen, Malmo area, one to Garrison, and one toward Deerwood. There's 3 or 4 stops along the way where parents can pick up families can pick up meals for those kids that are remote learning right now. At this point, I'd like to continue with that. What we do know is what we're doing now is better than last spring. We did the best we could in the spring, but we've done a lot. We've done updating to our technology. We've done updating to our systems. We've done updating with our teachers as far as their skills and abilities. We spent much of Friday with teachers teaching teachers on how to use Canvas, how to use the different platforms for delivering in person or delivering remotely. I know there's as many or maybe more tough stories about how the spring went as there is good stories, but we're addressing a lot of that with, we provided iPads and devices for elementary, which isn't the end all be all, but now we have the devices. And I think probably more importantly, we provide a lot of training for our staff to learn and get better at their skills. And so I'm asking the board to remote learning with our 4th through 12th grade, starting November 23rd through January 15th. We'll stay in person pre-K3 as long as we can. We know the challenges with our youngest learners. The challenges with remote learning is just magnified with our youngest learners. And I'd like to say we can make that through. I don't know. It's Thursday when I talked to you at the meeting we had here, I was feeling pretty good about our numbers. And by 10 o'clock Friday morning, all my numbers were bunked because it just went crazy amongst our staff. And I think at one point I don't want to say because I don't even know how many different contact tracing we had going. So that's what I'm asking. We'll provide child care for workers of essential employees and an option for child care, kind of a pay-as-you-go for families that also need that. By holding off until next week, I hope that gives the family some time to make plans. So, activities is a big question right now. I know the high school league, MDE, MDH have been kicking it around what they're going to do. I saw it tonight when I stopped at home quick that there's a supposedly announcement coming regarding activities. I have no idea what that is. I don't have the bat phone in on those conversations. Right now, my plan would be to finish fall and see fall activities and see what the recommendation is, should there be one, coming from the high school league, MDE, and MDH. So,
I got Dave and Dan. I guess pose a couple questions regarding this. If I got a minute.
Yep.
On the floor. I guess how are we ever going to get back to in-person learning? Recommended policy options based on the 14-day case rate range. Well, what we know is 10 cases per 10,000, which is 0.01, allows us to be in-person learning at 99.9% COVID-free for our area. In a hybrid model, 30 cases per 10,000. This is all on the state website, or 0.03. And 99.97% of our population COVID-free. And then distance learning happens when 50 cases per 10,000 or 0.05, equaling 99.95% of our population COVID-free. So in-person schooling versus distance learning is separated by 0.04%. Think about that. Distance learning occurs when 99.95% of our population is COVID-free. Our state, our country, our state, our city, and our school district will continue to chase their tails with the current standards in place. When you come in contact with someone with COVID, you must quarantine for 14 days. Come back to work after the 14 days, come in contact again, be quarantined for another 14 days. And potentially a maximum of 24 if a family member has contracted COVID. That's why we're short-staffed, not because all have potentially had COVID, but potentially came within the unforbidden distance of someone who has it. We're only kidding ourselves to think we'll be back to in-person learning anytime soon with these current standards. We had a conversation, Mr. Stipford, back in March and April, and I stated at the time, if distant learning continues over a lengthy period, public education will change forever. we as a board have some big upcoming decisions to make, not only with our budget reductions, but trying to predict what the outcomes of COVID will say in public education. If our kids don't get back to school in the structure we and they are all accustomed to, we're going to lose more. That's all I've got.
Jeremy, I don't know that, I don't know that I argue with any of that. Public education, regardless of what happens now, is going to look different when this is over. I do know, and I know I had asked Dr. Taylor and Bria and Aaron to join us in case you had questions that I couldn't answer on the medical side of things. They agreed to be here or be online. I do know our hospitals are at capacity, and there are concerns there. I did ask the question this morning: is the school helping or hurting the pandemic in our city? And Dr. Taylor chime in if I'm wrong, but basically said it is a little bit, but there's no guarantee by not having the kids in school or going to remote learning, it's going to change the impact it's having. And it's not, there isn't anything ideal with how we're handling the pandemic.
I mean, we talk about our hospitals at capacity, which many of them are across the state, but they're not at capacity with COVID patients.
And does that really matter? I mean, honestly, if I have a heart attack or if I have COVID, if I need to be treated in the ICU or in the emergency room, I want to be able to be treated, right? That's the thing.
I don't disagree with that, Cindy, but we're making it out that our hospitals are at capacity with COVID patients and that we're overwhelmed with COVID patients when I just shared the statistics of potentially why we're distance learning at 99.95% of our area is without COVID, and we're distance learning. And you need a heart, to your point, you need to be seen because of a heart issue, because you couldn't be seen 6 months ago, or an elective surgery, or whatever it may have been. And now we're beating the drum that our hospitals are overwhelmed. There's a hospital north of us with 300 bed capacity, and 6 of them have COVID patients in it. Of the 300 that are full, 6 are COVID patients. 294 are of patients that didn't come in because they were afraid of COVID, had something else, refused elective surgery or whatever it may be. So this chasing our tail of every 14 days because I came in contact or I walked by somebody and now I got to quarantine, we're never going back. It's not going to happen, because as soon as we do, I mean, we're going to be back to square one, chasing our tails.
Dr. Taylor, would you be able to address the capacity of our hospital? Is it because of COVID or not? Or is that...
Yeah, so.
Sorry.
I mean, Jeremy's correct. We're not full of COVID patients, but the reason we're full and the reason we've been full most days is directly because of COVID patients. We would be at our more normal capacity right now. And there was some of the patients that didn't come in last spring that I don't really know that any of those are in now, but certainly this summer we were seeing a problem because of what happened with the shutdown last spring. But right now, this last 10 days to 2 weeks, when we've been needing to transfer patients out or when we've been having, to look for extra nursing staff or to pay for extra nursing staff, it has been a direct result of the increase numbers we're seeing from COVID. A small percentage of those patients need hospitalization.
Dr. Taylor,
and if I can ask
that I have is COVID or not, middle of July without COVID, there's times that you probably don't have bed space where you're chipping people out too, correct?
That's pretty rare. It does happen, so it's not incorrect to say that. But it's, in my entire time being associated with Riverwood, it's never been at this capacity for this amount of time. But it's not incorrect to say at times we do reach capacity and have to ship people out.
Yeah, thank you.
And one thing that I've noticed is that with Crow Wing County anyways, who's our neighbor obviously to the west, their death rate is about 1%. Ours is 2.65%. Is there some reason that you can attribute to our rate being 2.5 times that?
I would be really careful with death rates. They're almost always going to be wrong. And the reason they're going to be wrong is how many people in our communities have had COVID that weren't even infected by it at all, that had like no symptoms whatsoever. And then when you look back in the early part of this pandemic, people weren't getting tested that had it. So I think you can't make much of those numbers. Those mortality rates are going to be, personally think when we look at this and when I look at some of the experts who are able to extrapolate this, the mortality rate is going to be well below 1% all across the country. It's probably going to be below 0.5% in terms of actual mortality rate. So, but when you're comparing Aiken to Crow Wing, I mean, unless Aaron and Brea have something different that they would suggest, I wouldn't put much stock in those numbers. We certainly have a very old population in Aiken, but we haven't had a lot of deaths here yet for our county's population. So,
but we're having them every day, I guess, is my point. And I didn't know if people were dying at home, if they're dying in the hospital, if they're dying because they aren't able to get into the hospital. That's I guess the point of my question is that we're experiencing deaths every day.
Correct, and it's because of the increased amount of COVID that's widespread in our community now,
where
it hasn't been before. And a certain percentage of those people will ultimately not fare well with it, and so, and it's all of those things you just described. We've been able to transfer, I believe almost all of the patients that have died have been able to be transferred, but then some have died in the long-term care facilities, and I know of one today that just died at home. So that it's happening in all those ways.
The concern that I have is with the MDE numbers, you're looking at a 2-week look back period. That's 2 weeks ago. And so when you take a look at that chart or that formula that Mr. Jansen talked about, we're actually going to be double that if we were at a point where we were using real-time data, because we've had such a significant rise in the number of cases in the last 2 weeks in particular. And anyone who does any sort of math knows that those numbers are just exponentially going to continue to be increasing.
But Dr. Taylor and Cindy, the more the numbers go up with positive COVID, that's a direct correlation with the fact that more and more people all the time are being tested. The percentage of death is dropping. Is that correct?
Well, so
as a percentage of that, of those testing positive.
Well, so that's, I mean, there's absolutely more COVID in our community. It's not simply because of more testing.
Right.
It is partially that. Like our numbers, if you watch our numbers all through the summer, we didn't have much for numbers, and a lot of that is testing. And then we increased our testing, and yes, you're going to find more COVID. And so there is that. But when you look at the percent positivity, that's where we know that despite the increased testing, we're also turning up a lot more positive in the community. And it doesn't take a statistician to know that, I've been working in the emergency room every week since this pandemic started at sometimes once, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times a week. And there's no question we weren't seeing a lot of COVID, and now in the past 3 weeks we absolutely are. I wouldn't need to be a statistics, know anything about it to know I'm all of a sudden seeing 4 or 5 people a day that have COVID.
Right.
Back when this all came about, March, April, I think it was said to us that 40 to 80% of the population potentially was going to get COVID. And so I don't think it's any newsflash, to me anyway, that there's more people getting COVID, because from the beginning, that's what we were told. Half the population potentially is going to get COVID. Sad part for me on this, a couple weeks ago, our volleyball team can't play anymore because somebody within the volleyball team contracted COVID and shut down for 2 weeks. And we have staff that, around somebody that had COVID has to go home, can't come to work, and on the volleyball team example, don't go around anybody with the football team, because now the football team might get it, and then they're not going to be able to play football and all those things. Not one time have we ever thought about or about the health of the individual in the volleyball team or the staff, or just, hey, stay away from people so we don't, I mean, that's the sad part. It's all about so that we don't quarantine anybody else for 14 days, not about the health of the person. And that just drives me bonkers, because the first thing, if we're truly caring and we're concerned about COVID, we would concern first about the health of the person. Well, we're not doing that as a community, potentially, or as a state, or as a country. It's all about being able to get back to work, or back to school, or back to playing sports.
And so, Jeremy, doesn't that just fly in the face of what you just said? You just said we should be back in person, but now you're saying we're not back in person because we don't care about the people.
That's not what I said, Cindy. Don't put words in my mouth, please. What I said is it's concerning that we don't care. We're more concerned about this 14 days so that we can get back there. That's what we're concerned about. So you don't spread, don't go around this person. Go around them because we want to get back to playing volleyball or playing football, or, hey, you're on the list, you're not on the list. That's what we're concerned about.
I think what we're concerned about is people getting COVID and dying. That's what I'm concerned about. I don't really care what the rate is. If one student, one staff member, one volunteer is too much. That's what I'm concerned about.
And I didn't say that wasn't the case, Cindy. What I said is that's not what we're concerned about.
Well, I get your point, Jeremy.
That's not what the protocols and this whole COVID thing has. God, why didn't we have this kind of concern when H1N1 was there? Deadly as hell. Deadly. Why didn't we have that concern then? And I'm saying that in the context of we're removing people, to Jeremy's point about taking people out to quarantine them. They go back for a day. All of a sudden we're however many feet from somebody else who potentially was in contact with somebody with COVID, and they're back out again. Our society is not going to move forward. And unfortunately, here's why I'm here, and here's why I'm concerned. It's because this is about kids. This is about kids. And I'm not blaming, Dan, I'm not blaming you in this. There is no blame to place in you. You're given these parameters and protocols to have to follow by MDE and a governor. And believe me, that doesn't minimize one bit of what that ultimate responsibility is on somebody like Dr. Tate and our hospital. They're the ones trying to protect the most vulnerable in our community. But our schools are in a bad place. Our kids are in a bad place. This is not ideal. And I hope that God can change fast.
And Joe,
To Joe's point, Dan, same thing. I'm just stating what the guidelines are, and that this is what we as a school have to follow. I'm not putting anything. You're following what the guidelines are put on by the state, as is the next district and the district after that.
Right. Well, I quit taking this personal a long time ago. But and you're right with the guidelines. Realistically, we're as far as I know, we're really the only one of the few places anyway. I shouldn't say the only that have the 14 days. And if you're, what really gets us is if you have somebody positive in your house, and once they're cleared, you are 14 days above and beyond that. So it can be. I think maybe Jeremy hit it earlier. It can be up to 24 days, but those are the guidelines. Those are the guidelines we have to follow, and it's just where we're at. And the idea that I think online learning, remote learning is best for kids is foolish. I wouldn't be trying to be superintendent of a school where we want to be in person. If I really believed in online learning, I would look for a job in an online learning place. But weighing everything, this is my recommendation, and
Dan, I'm going to support your recommendation, and I'm going to support it because we don't have the people to backfill. You're right. I can't imagine what a pain in the you-know-what it is trying to, just the scheduling aspect of this whole thing. But in the context of what, kids came to school to be a part of this fall, and that, the distancing and the masks and oh God,
we made a heck of a run. I would like to think we're going to get a chance to come back. It might take some guidelines being eased. I don't know if MDH is looking at that. There was a discussion we had this morning too in our call that, sometimes the things were put in place and they're left in place, and if the medical world thinks maybe that something could be changed, maybe they have an input. But right now, these are our guidelines. This is where we're at numbers wise. I know the anxiety on our staff is going up as numbers go up. Nobody wants to be the one bringing it home to their kids or bringing it home to their spouse. Just like we see and we talked about already. So, not saying this will prevent that, but hopefully it'll limit what it.
It's touching all of our families right now.
Yeah.
It is mine. I can tell you that. Do I have it? No. But I hope people cannot live in fear. That's what I hope.
Work. And I think that, just being purely honest with you, I think it's a failure of the adults in our community to follow the guidelines, which is really hard to do, just because this has dragged on so long. But I think that's what's put our kids in this position now, because it's in our community, it's not spread in the kids. There's been a few, but that's not the big spread. The big spread is 40, 50, 60-year-olds. And so, and unfortunately, I think it's going to go up before it goes down, because we got deer camp going on right now, and then we got Thanksgiving. And it's really challenging. But is everybody just going to have Thanksgiving with just, their immediate family? No, they're going to have it with their extended family, and we don't have enough testing for everyone to get tested. Like, the way to do this would be, hey, you're going to have Thanksgiving. Everybody gets tested 3 days before they get together. And if one of the family members is positive, well, they sit it out this year. That's how you keep this from spreading. And that's how we could get back to school if I were, I don't know if I were in charge, if I'd be able to do this, but I'd try to make testing so available that kids could get tested like 3 times a week. And you try to catch things early before they can blow up on you. But that still takes buy-in from the adults in the community to kind of buy into all the safeguards and the precautions. And that just, we're Americans. We're independent. We're a whole bunch of things. And I think, we're getting into a little bit of a philosophical discussion, but I think that's what's led to this. And I think that's unfortunately, that's what's going to keep it going for a bit until it's touched enough people with people they know who've been really sick. And this is the other problem. 99 point something of the, people are going to survive this. And then 95% don't really have any significant symptoms. So you're talking 5% or less are hospitalized but the ones that are hospitalized, I wish you guys could see it, because it's unfortunately, I don't wish you could see it. It's just like they're very different. They sit in a hospital for multiple days at a time, and then they get put on a ventilator for multiple days at a time. And that's where it's so weird, this disease, because unlike somebody referenced H1N1 earlier, which I think killed 12,000 Americans, and just turns out it wasn't as contagious, but I think it was probably more deadly for the people that got it. It's a disease unlike any that we've experienced, really, and that's what's made it a challenge.
Thank you, Doctor.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Thank you, Dr. Taylor. I think it's a good idea to move forward too, because I think that the number of people who have voluntarily opted to distance learn their own children is continuing to rise, and I personally think that that's a direct reflection of us still having students in class from people who are concerned about that. And so I think that if we chose to do nothing, I think we would just continue to see those numbers rise.
Good possibility of that happening. But this is, nothing has been predictable with this from my standpoint. I think most would agree. So we just don't know where it's going and what's going to happen as we move forward. So I guess I'd like to ask the board to entertain a motion and a vote on going with the...
The motion to accept your proposal, Dan, and I compliment you on working through this and doing everything possible especially doing everything possible to keep our kids in school. I like the fact that we're really focusing on those younger kids as well, because that's a critical stage where distance learning is much more of a challenge. So hats off to you and Andy and Paul and for trying to keep this thing going.
Motion by Mr. Ryan. Is there a second?
I'll second it. I agree.
Second. Second by Mr. Bailey. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries with all members voting yes. Okay, upcoming meetings. Yeah.
We good?
Yes. And so the MSBA Leadership Conference is in a virtual format. Our next Personnel Committee meeting is November 25th. Monday's November 30th board work session, 7 p.m. here and on Google Chat. That will be dedicated to discussing finance. Thursday, December 3rd, Facilities and Finance. Wednesday, December 9th, Policy Committee meeting. Monday, December 14th is a board work session. December 21st is the Truth and Taxation hearing, which will be held here as well as Google Chat at 6:30 p.m. And then Monday, December 21st is the regular school board meeting.
Kevin had his hand up at November 30th, I think.
It might be too late, but that work session, you think it shouldn't be about COVID instead of the levy? Are we going to learn anything by then or no?
What did Kevin say? I
missed it.
You got the levy on November 30th. Should we do a COVID one instead of the levy and do the levy the next one?
Just for...
I think we need to move right away on the levy.
I can give maybe have an update or talk about COVID.
We'll see.
yeah,
If we can't do nothing until March or April, I don't think a week's going to hurt us, 2 weeks going to hurt us. We can call the next work session and go with the levy, but I mean, the COVID is hurting us right now big time. And I think there should be an update or something on there instead of just all levy.
It's also something we have to, all we can do with the COVID is respond to what numbers and the situation and statistics Dan provides with regard to quarantines and teachers out and substitutes.
And I'll continue. Yep. I'll continue to give weekly updates with much information as I have, and I can give an update that night. I mean, it's part of it, but
I think so. I think we can discuss the levy. I mean, we've got to move on.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make motion.
Motion by Mr. Hoag. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Jansen. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with all members voting yes. Thank you.
thank you, everybody. Thanks, board. Thanks, everybody who was on.
By the way, the Vikings are ahead with 53 seconds to go on the first half, 7-3.